Hello and welcome back to another episode of Come Back Stronger, where we bring you stories of extraordinary people who have overcome significant adversity and gone on to come back stronger and help other people along the way. I'm Dana Brooks of Fasig Brooks Law Offices, and I'm joined today with my law partner, Jimmy Fasig.
Hello.
And Jimmy, we have such an extraordinary guest to bring to our viewers today. This young woman, we've seen her grow up. We know her mother and her family very well, and she actually works with us. She's one of our interns.
Our very own Savanna Young.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she is such an amazing person, because you can never look at her and tell what she's been through.
No.
It's fascinating. You look at Savanna and she's absolutely gorgeous. She walks with such confidence, but she's also very humble. And you don't realize, you look at her and you think, mate, she's never had a hard day in her life.
That's exactly right.
She's never had a hard day in her life, but the truth of the matter is, she was the victim of bullying.
Yes, she was.
And it was pretty severe bullying. We're not talking about just,
little picking on you. It's not that.
And she was actually got to the point where she had some suicidal tendencies.
Right, ideations, absolutely.
But she had, but she has used that, what she's gone through, and come back stronger.
Yes,
and now she's out there helping other people get through it, and she's very much taken a strong anti-bullying stance.
Yeah.
She's got a great comeback story.
She does, and what I love about it and what I'm happy about bringing it today is this is going to be a story of debunking stereotypes in a lot of ways, and it's going to be an exercise in empathy, because like you said, you look at a young woman like this, and even we've known her. I've known her for a number of years, and I think I remember her mother maybe mentioning something about the bullying, but I didn't understand it at this level. But it will show you that you don't know what you think you know about other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so to challenge some of those assumptions you have, and we all have, and look deeper whenever you are trying to be a friend or trying to decide what you think about somebody. But anyway, we're going to take a minute here and have a break, and we're going to come back and hear the first part of our two-part interview with Miss Savanna Young. Stay tuned.
This is a difficult job, and the late nights are easier when you have the passion behind you about what you're doing it for. When you know that person needs you, it's easy to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning to make sure you're ready and prepared for the next day, right? Whatever it takes to win.
When you're creating a law firm, you want to have people on your team that have experience on the other side.
Right.
And that can make the critical difference between winning and losing a case.
Yes.
And the number one value that drives our law firm is compassion.
That's right.
So that's why when I hear you say that when you're a defense attorney, it hurt your heart to have to defend a case that you knew was a legitimate case, that makes me feel very good about the fact that you've come onto our team.
And our number two value is a passion for justice. And you staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning working hard for the clients is certainly evidence of that.
That's passion for justice.
Yes.
Go into trial, taking it all the way. And we are back for Carrie Roan's first part of her two-part interview with Savanna Young. And this is Suicide Prevention Month. And Savanna is so brave to share with us how she's used her platform to share her story and help other people. Take a look.
Savanna, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you for having me.
This is an awesome surprise to me because you're actually an intern at the firm.
Yes.
And I didn't really know your backstory until I did my pre-interview. So I'm excited to talk to you.
Me too.
Although I'm kind of sad because I've always known you as kind of like a pageant, you know, a successor in pageants, right? Like a beauty queen, so to speak.
Right.
And I never knew that you had this other side to you and that you had suffered so much. So let's start with that, like what happened to you as a teen and how that made you feel.
Right, yeah, and like a big reason I joined pageants was because of what I went through. So growing up throughout high school and early middle school, I was bullied really severely, and it went on for a couple years. It was every day, and when I say bullying, I mean like taunting, picking apart. I was physically bullied. I was called names I won't even repeat out loud.
Yeah.
And when you hear things about yourself every single day, you begin to believe them.
Yeah.
And I doubted who I was. I doubted my worth. I felt like I was nothing. I became suicidal.
What grades?
So I want to say it started end of 7th grade and went to early 9th grade.
Okay.
So it was about 2.5 years-ish. And then sophomore year, I actually ended up transferring out of high school and switching to online school, which was better for my mental health and then also better for the career path that I was in. But it was a really, really long time, and it was hard. And I remember, you know, writing letters to my parents and my sister because they were going to find my body on the floor at some point.
Kids are brutal.
brutal.
They're so brutal. And I think we need to do a better job as parents to tell our kids to be kind and not make fun of people. I was
Right.
bullied and made fun of, they called me olive oil and Dolly Parton and all kinds of things because I was a skinny tomboy, flat-chested, and I got made fun of brutally in high school. And I remember I used to leave school and just go to my mom's job and we'd be crying my eyes out, but I didn't have the same type of mental health reaction that you had as far as the suicidal thoughts. So what made it get to that point where you just felt completely like worthless?
I think that when it happens for a short amount of time, you're like, okay, these are high school kids, I'm fine. My mom was like, they're just jealous of you, what every mom says. But once it started to continue and just kept getting worse and worse, and I lost a lot of friends. They, were my close friends, and then switched to the other side and started being a part of the rest of the group.
Was it all mean girls or boys too?
It was a mixture. So I went to a very small school, and it was very cliquey. So the class that I switched classes with was the class you were with all day. So it was the entire class that was bullying me. It wasn't just, a few mean girls, because that unfortunately happens to pretty much everybody. But it was an entire class that I had to see every single day and couldn't get out of. And I would walk to class by myself. I would eat lunch by myself. And it just got to the point where I was so lonely and felt like I was worth nothing, that at the end of it, that's when I was like, okay, I don't want to live anymore.
I always tell my kids, if you see somebody who's alone, go sit with him or her.
Yeah,
just don't let somebody
absolutely.
be alone at school.
Absolutely.
Gosh.
You never know. Just from the outside, you never know what's underneath. It's like an iceberg is what I like to say, is like you see the tip of the iceberg, and then underneath the ocean is like a big ice chunk of what somebody's
And
going
even
through.
looking at you now, like, I mean, you're stunning and you're
Thank you.
so poised and confident and successful. And I would never even imagine that you had been bullied. Like, I was shocked when I did the pre-interview and read that about you. Just completely, like, I look at myself, I'm like, oh, of course I was bullied. You would never be bullied. So it's crazy to find that out. So did your parents get help for you when you were expressing like suicidal thoughts?
So it took a long time for me to tell my parents. And I think a lot of teens deal with that. It's not easy to go to your parents and say, I'm suicidal, I have depression, I have anxiety, because they grew up in a whole different generation that didn't necessarily talk about those things.
That's right, yeah.
So it took a really long time. And my mom eventually noticed my mood and just the quietness and not wanting to be around anybody. She found texts on my phone from people who were bullying me that were just nasty text messages. And so we eventually had a conversation, and I just remember just crying and pouring out my heart to her and just telling her everything that happened. And we took measures from there, but it was a long time until I told them. And I'm lucky to have that support system, but a lot of teens don't have that. And school is their escape from home. But when school is also, tragic, then you don't have an escape anywhere.
Did you have anybody at school that you could reach out to, like a guidance counselor or a particular teacher?
I had a guidance counselor who was also the principal, but to be honest, it wasn't the best experience.
Why was that? He or she just wasn't really empathetic?
I think it's really hard for guidance counselors to take on the role of a therapist because they're managing so many things. Because that same person who's acting like a guidance counselor is also telling you to make good grades and get your college applications in, and they're managing disciplinary behavior and things like that. It's too much for one person to handle.
That's very true. So did your mom have you go get help from a therapist or a psychiatrist? Or
I did go to a therapist for a little bit, but I'll be honest, it was hard. Like, even though I was going to therapy, I was still getting bullied at school. And it's like, how do you combat that? I have one person telling me these things aren't true. Like, that's not your worth. But then I go to school and it was the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
Was there anything that you tried to say to the bullies or tried to do to fend them off?
If that was happening to me now, I absolutely would be able to stand up for myself. But at the time, as a 13, 14-year-old girl, I just thought that I had no self-worth at all. I had no idea how to stand up for myself.
That's a really hard time in a girl's life, is that 13-year-old time frame.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what happened when you decided to leave school? Was that a difficult decision or was that a big relief?
It was a difficult decision because I was an athlete. So I wanted to stay with my team and I wanted to be a part of that. But at the same time, I moved to online school, number 1, for my mental health, number 2, for modeling, because I was traveling a lot. And it was kind of just like this point where I wanted to leave and prove everybody wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did, eventually. But there was a point, and I'm a woman of faith, that God said to me, this is happening for you and not to you.
That's interesting. What do you think that means?
That everything that happened, and the trauma, the bullying, and just everything I went through, I now see it. If I'm sitting here and looking back at that 13-year-old girl, I'm like, wow, I'm so thankful for that experience.
I was just about to ask you that, if you were actually grateful for it.
I am.
How do you turn something so awful into something that you're grateful for?
It's hard because then when I was 13, I wouldn't have been able to see it, but I just kept hearing that, like, this is happening for you, not to you. I have a greater purpose for you. I have a greater vision for you. And now that I'm sitting here, I look back and I'm like, wow, like, God was so right. I've been able to use that to help so many other people and share my story like this.
That's awesome. When we come back, I want to talk about why you got into modeling and all your success as a model and what you're doing now to kind of give back to women and girls.
Yeah, absolutely.
What incredible insight.
That is what this show is all about.
It is.
It's happening for you and not to you.
That's right.
That's my wholehearted belief, is that every challenge, every obstacle, every injury, every setback is life's way of guiding us to become the highest and best version of ourselves, so we can contribute the most to making this world a better place.
Yeah.
That's what Savanna has done.
Yeah, and think about the age you were when you had that realization, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you think about what
In my
she's telling
40s.
us and reminding us is the power
Yeah.
of our first experiences,
Yeah.
and how those things can be indelible, and how you can
Yeah.
have the love of your mother, your parents, therapists, dedicated people who love you, telling you one message, but if every other message you're getting is constantly
Yeah.
reinforced, they're not going to be able to stand up to it, and you will be imprinted. There will be something indelible in your mind that will always tell you, you're still not good enough, you're still that girl everybody's making fun of, whatever. And I'm so thankful, and I'm so thankful she has her faith, but I'm so thankful she has this insight as early as she does.
I love the fact that she has taken that pain and she has made it her greatest strength.
Yes.
And she is using that as the fire that fuels her to do good in the world.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
I love it. And when we come back after the break, she's going to get into the platform that she does have and how she's used that. And then we'll talk more about how she just helps you challenge all the assumptions and
Yeah.
presumptions you have about people. She's just doing great things in the world, and she's sharing her pain in hopes that someone else doesn't get to the point where they say, I don't want to be here anymore. So thank you, Savanna, and thank you all for watching. We're going to take a brief break, and we'll be right back after this.
Excellent service, 100 times more responsive than other attorneys I've worked with. Highly recommend, especially attorney Kimmy Hogan. She is fabulous.
Yes, she is.
It's all about communication. The number one complaint about lawyers is my lawyer never calls me back. But the number two complaint is my lawyer never calls me and tells me what's happening with my case. That's why I love reading a review like this, because I know, Kimmy, you are really good about calling your clients, letting them know what's happening with the case, keeping them informed every step of the way. Because what you got to remember is that these clients, this is their first case a lot of times. They've never been through this before. They don't know what to expect. Am I doing the right thing? Am I getting the right medical treatment? Am I actually going to get a settlement at the end of the case? So they need that reassurance, and they need to know what the process is every step along the way.
And we are back. We're going to watch Carrie Roan's second part of her two-part interview with Savanna Young, who's so brave, telling us her story about when she was very down and very out and how she turned it all around. Take a look.
So we left off with me being curious about your pageantry and about modeling. How
Yes.
did you go from a girl that was bullied into a girl that thought enough of herself to be able to model and do pageants?
It was a long transition. I always wanted to be a model, probably since I was like 10 years old, just like thought it was so much fun and glamorous. And I started modeling probably about the time I was getting bullied and it was kind of subsiding. So freshman year, and I decided to leave and do online school because of how much I was traveling with it. And it was the best thing for my mental health to get out of school. I don't think a lot of people can do online school. You have to be very self-disciplined, and it's hard, and you have to basically teach yourself, but it was the best thing for me, and I was able to pursue my dreams and do all of those things. The confidence took a while, but I think that, like I said, getting out of school helped with that, and then also modeling and having to be confident. You can't be insecure in front of the camera.
I was about to say, the model industry is brutal.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you can get picked apart, and sometimes you don't know why you don't get picked for a runway, or you don't know why you don't get picked for a shoot or a client. Like, how did you make it through such a critical or a criticizing industry?
I go back to my faith, where we're made in God's image. We're not made in the image of a director or a producer or a brand who's choosing models. And you have to look at it that way, as like, they're looking at it like, what person is best for my brand, not who's the prettiest. And that was really hard because I've gotten a lot of pushback in the industry. It happens to every model. But since I was bullied, I'm like, okay, whatever they say about me, I've been through much worse, so I'm fine.
So you kind of use that to your advantage.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
nothing that these people can say that's
you
going to hurt
cannot
me.
hurt me.
Wow. Where did you travel to? What kind of work did you do?
I did a lot in South Florida. That's the main place I've traveled. I went to Cincinnati one time. I think that's the farthest I've gone. I started in runway, and then I kind of fell in love with print and fitness modeling, swimsuit modeling. That's kind of where I like to stay now.
Is that what you're still doing?
I am. I have pushed back a little bit of it. I'm more focused on pageantry now because of the advocacy and the way you get to share your story with the world. I think it's a little bit more me than modeling is, but I do like both.
So how did you get into pageantry? Why did that interest you? Because pageants can have a bad reputation. You know,
Yes,
pageant
absolutely.
girls can have a bad reputation as being kind of surfacey or trite or not deep.
Right.
So how did you get into that? What attracted What attracted you to that?
So I always had that same stigma around pageantry as well until I actually joined a pageant. And when you compete in a pageant, you actually realize that it's so much deeper than that. I was actually modeling at Atlanta Market a couple years ago, and the girls there were like, go do Miss Florida Teen USA. Like, you can totally do it. So I applied and was just like, let's go do it. And I was able to share my story with the judges, which was really, really cool. And also on stage about the bullying and the mental health and how I've come out of it and been helping others with it.
That's awesome. And so tell me about your titles that you've won in pageantry.
I have been Miss East Tallahassee Teen USA as well as Miss Leon County Teen USA, and I placed second runner-up in Miss Florida Teen USA this past year.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
What's next for you?
I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah? Are you gonna
I'm
enter
just kind
more?
of going with the flow right now.
Uh-huh.
I might.
Are you in school?
I'm not. I'm starting school in January.
That's cool. And I know you're working at Fasig Brooks.
Yes.
And you're also a makeup artist.
I am.
With
correct.
Lisa Davis, right?
Yes.
You have a lot on your plate.
I do.
So what are you doing to kind of give back and help girls that are in the same situation that you were with the anxiety and the depression and the suicidal thoughts?
So I've started Tally Teens for Change, which is my mental health advocacy group with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is part of America's largest grassroots mental health organization. And so we've worked together to fight for political change because that's where I believe we can actually make change in mental health. So we've fought for more funding for 988, which is the National Suicide Hotline. That one's very near and dear to my heart because if I would have known about that, or if it would have been a thing when I was 13, 14, that would have been the number I called or texted because it's an instant resource for teens. And we all have phones, so it's easy. And you don't have to talk to your parents or talk to a guidance counselor. There's a mental health professional on the phone for you.
So you just dial 988 and you get through to a counselor or a therapist right away?
Correct, yes. But the issue is the lack of funding. Like out of 2 million calls in the past year to 988, 300,000 were hung up on or not able to go through.
Right.
And that could be 300,000 lives lost.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. So it's so important that we have the funding for organizations like that.
Absolutely. What type of thing do you do to get the funding? Are you like talking to politicians, or are you doing it through private businesses?
Right. So we went to the Capitol on Behavioral Health Day to talk to legislation. And then I'm also hosting fundraisers constantly.
Where can people find you?
Tally Teens for Change on Instagram.
So what does Tally Teens for Change do?
We fight together for political change. We also, we're more focused on holistic mental health. So what can we do internally to help our mental health? You know, we had a story takeover day where one of my team members was like going on a walk outside and making sure she's fueling her body the right way, taking time for herself, journaling, things like that.
I was just about to ask you, if somebody is watching now, a teenager or an adult who's feeling suicidal, what are some of the things that you would say to them?
I would say that the things that people say about you are not who you are. That's because they're miserable themselves, if that's why. The other thing is, regardless of what religion you are made in the image of the King. That's not something to take lightly. Like, you are here for a reason. Everyone here has their own individual purpose. And for me, that was really hard to find when I was younger. But now that I'm sitting here today, I'm like, okay, this is my purpose, and this is why God has me here.
And this is why you've gone through the trauma that you've gone through, so you
Yes.
can help other people.
Yeah,
And everybody's beautiful in their own way.
absolutely.
They really are. And everybody's flawed in their own way. So the people that are doing bullying are just as flawed and just as beautiful as the people that they're bullying.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, thank you so much for being here, Savanna. This has
Thank
really
you for
been
having me.
enlightening. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
What a strong, impressive, poised young woman.
There is so much to unpack there. What was your biggest takeaway, Dana?
Oh, I'm just thinking again, this is the fourth beauty queen that has worked with us in our firm. And I always think about the stigma attached to them and the assumptions we make about people who look like they're born beautiful. You don't know what anyone's struggle is. And you don't know the target that they have on their back, because people hate unearned privilege. They can't stand to see somebody succeed if it looks like it's effortless and they didn't earn it. So they come at you. And it's the smallest parts of ourselves that make us do that. But for her to rise above that, and I love pageants, and I'll tell you why. I have judged them, and I have met some of the best workers, and these girls who I've mentored work with me, they have gone on to do great things because they use that as a platform and a forum. This young woman, because she is using that, she's getting the attention of people who make policy and make the laws that affect us. And she's making sure that other people have resources that weren't available to her. What a wonderful springboard pageantry was and is for her.
I will never look at a pageant and think that person that is in that pageant is shallow or ditzy or whatever, because that it takes depth, it takes strength, it takes courage to get in front of those people and to speak your truth. And what a lot of the beauty queens do is they use it as a platform to make real change.
Sure they do.
And send messages.
Yeah.
So
they're not trying to get to New York or Milan.
No.
They're trying to make the world better. And if you get just some girls, you get one girl comfortable walking up and being out there and speaking and standing up straight, then you have one. And if she gets 2 or 3 other girls, that's all you need. I love it.
One thing I love about her is if you follow her online, which I encourage you to do, she is so humble.
Yes, she
and
is.
what she'll do is she'll put on videos of her doing her makeup and showing herself before she has her makeup on, and she's just completely authentic and completely real.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's strength.
Yes,
that's
it is.
courage, and that came from pain.
Yeah.
The strength came from the pain that she went through. I love when she said, "Whatever they say to me, I've been through worse."
Yeah. They can't touch her.
You can't touch me because I have gone through this, and therefore I know I can handle that.
I know it.
That's strength. I love it.
No, I can't wait to come back after this break. It'll just be a minute, and we'll finish up this extraordinary story about this wonderful young woman right back after this.
When you look at it, insurance, they work on algorithms. It's all a numbers game. At the end of the day, it's our job to make sure they understand that this is a change in circumstance. Something was stolen from somebody else. And at the end of the day, with our clients, the majority of the time, they did nothing wrong, and they had to go through that. And that's the point. It's very important to make insurance companies understand our clients are not just numbers on a wall or some algorithm of an adjusted premium. That's not what this is. This is a life, right? That is substantially changed. And it's very important that they understand that.
Life comes down to a series of moments. Some moments are joyful, others are painful. But when somebody comes along and through their negligence takes away some of those joyful moments and replaces them with painful moments, then they've taken away something of value, something that our clients are never going to be able to get back. Our job is to make sure that they get fully compensated for that.
And we are back wrapping up Carrie Roan's two-part interview with the lovely Savanna Young. She has just blown away every stereotype you could have about pageantry, modeling, and how easy the world must be for people who are blessed with just lovely aesthetics. You don't know what you're talking about whenever you assume things about other people is the takeaway I get. Jimmy, what are your final takeaways with this today?
I think she's a lot like you, Dana. I think she's a lot like you because I think people look at you. People can look at you and they can say, "Boy, she's never had a hard day in her life." Right. But we know that that's not true. No. But that's the beauty of Savanna. But I'll tell you one thing. This is what I want to say. I think this is important. If you're going through hard times, if you're having suicidal ideations, if you can love yourself enough to push through that pain, you will find strength on the other side that you never knew you had. Right. That's the challenge. I remember one time in my life that I literally had a gun in my mouth. And I pushed through it. I ended up doing 2.5 years in prison, but I went through it. And now, because I've been through 2.5 years in prison, if I'm having a bad day, it's
what
like,
can anybody
this
do
isn't
to you?
a bad day.
What can anybody do
this
to you?
This is a walk in the park.
No.
That's exactly what Savanna has gone through, and that's why she's strong at such a young age.
And I love this too, Jimmy. I hope that you appreciate this, but there are resources now. We don't treat these issues the way we did just 3, 4, 5 years ago. We don't. We know things now. We know that this is treatable. We know that there should be no shame associated. We know that the world is harder, especially for our younger people with the social media and the feedback. They could be in the backseat of your car and you think they're safe as a parent, and they're getting a barrage of things that make them want to jump out in front of traffic. So just listen to people, believe in them, don't assume anything, and believe in stories like Savanna Young's. Thank you for watching. We hope you tune in next week for another exciting, wonderful story on Come Back Stronger. We'll see you then.
Good to see you, everybody.
So many times, a lot of what we can do is help people regain their mobility. One of the most rewarding things I've ever done was I had a client who was dying in a terminal illness. That was the problem. He had a test result that said, hey, pay attention, it was sitting in a file for 17 months. By the time somebody found it, it's too late, so he knows he's dying. But he also knows he has a certain amount of money available to him. He had grandchildren in England he'd never seen. And so he spent most of his time in the air going back and forth. He was just like, you gave me the best last months of my life.
Wow. One thing that you could do for him is give him the freedom through having a settlement that he was able to do what he wanted during that last year or 6 months of his life.
And he died in peace because his wife was taken care of.
That is such a big deal.
Yeah. Traffic cameras are everywhere, providing valuable evidence if you've been in an accident.
But if you can't access the visual evidence, it could just be your word against theirs.
Our firm has partnered with Roadproof to have access to all their traffic camera footage.
Let Fasig Brooks search our network of traffic cameras to find your video evidence today.
If you've been hurt in an accident, give us a call and we'll find out if the proof you need is out there.
Let us find your video evidence so you can come back stronger.